On December 16th, the Holy Orthodox Church commemorates the memory of the Archbishop of Ephesus named Memnon. Now, Saint Memnon happened to be Archbishop at a very important time, and that time was when the Third Ecumenical Council had been assembled in 431. Today, it's often difficult for us to understand some of the controversies that went on back then because they can be very complex and they cross cultural, political, and theological lines that are often so intertwined it's difficult for us to sort them out. It's also difficult for us to understand the great intensity of the arguments that were taking place back then, because the Orthodox were very, very concerned about maintaining the true faith of Christ. And even though we know this could come down to one iota, an iota, today it seems to us a little bit over the top that people could get so upset by things like this. Yet, when we are speaking about the truth of God, everything is important. And certainly, St. Memnon considered it important back then. He was an ally of the great Cyril of Alexandria and was very much in favor of Alexandrine theology being put forth at that time. He was so upset over the actions of the heretic Nestorius that he went through Ephesus and inspired people to essentially parade with him and honor the Holy Mother of God, known as Theotokos. And he also was responsible for keeping Nestorius and his allied bishops out of the churches of Ephesus at that time. Now, a certain John of Antioch, who was someone who backed up the theology of Nestorius, was coming to Ephesus and was delayed by several days. In that time period, Memnon and Cyril had not had but one, but two meetings of the council. And in that council, they deposed Nestorius. When John of Antioch finally arrived, he was very upset by this. And in fact, a few days later, called a council together, which, with the help of the authorities at the time, who were anti-Orthodox, in deposing Cyril of Alexandria and Memnon too. This council would later be regarded as a robber council, one that was opposed to the proclamation of the Orthodox faith. However, this story does have somewhat of a good ending, because not only was one of the greatest and most powerful and most arrogant of all the heretics, Nestorius, finally condemned and put down, but 2 years later, there was a reconciliation between Cyril of Alexandria and John of Antioch. And with this reconciliation, the depositions that John had issued were lifted, and of course Cyril was regarded as one of the linchpins of all of orthodoxy, even though not long afterwards his theology would be misunderstood and misinterpreted yet again, causing another great division in the Church of Christ, one that would lead to the establishment of what we now call the Oriental Orthodox churches, which has lasted to this day, although there are hopes that perhaps in the future this too can be reconciled. But it's important for us to take from St. Memnon's life the integrity that he had in trying to establish the Orthodox faith. And in our day and age, when there are so many people that are not only theologically ignorant, but theologically feel that theology isn't important at all, that it's only feelings that matter, and only certain proclamations that matter, and that what we believe actually about the truth of God doesn't count for anything. It's important for us to realize that these things are as important now as they were back then. And although we may not be able to lead processions through cities demonstrating for the truth and veracity of the Orthodox faith, although certainly at certain times of the year this does seem appropriate as we approach the Nativity, and especially in our processions at Pascha, as a demonstration of our concern for the truth of the faith. Although we may not do this every day, it's important in our hearts that we do maintain this, and that we do not shrink from the idea of proclaiming the true faith in Christ, which is found only in orthodoxy. This is very important today, especially in countries like ours, where we are a distinct minority. But yet, that didn't stop the early Christians. It didn't stop St. Memnon or St. Cyril of Alexandria, and it certainly should not stop us either. By their holy prayers, Cyril of Alexandria and St. Memnon, Archbishop of Ephesus, a proclaimer of orthodoxy, may we too find the strength to continue our faith, both in a proclamation and in our hearts as well.